Hi, welcome
Yes,
back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This week we talk about Campaign 2, Episode 48, Homeward Bound. The Incredible Journey.
Oh, yeah.
Right off the top, Travis illustrates his ability to forget. Because he's like, they're talking to the wharf master, and yeah, we're gonna be here a long time. We're just looking to park the
Right.
boat.
Well, and himself as the captain, and then Laura saves it. Oh, Mr. Orley, sir, here are your papers.
Yeah. And Orly putting on the captain's hat got a big reaction from everybody. Yeah. And right off the bat, we also have Jester taking the lead again.
Yeah. Well, between that and then the looking for stuff and all of that, just delving into setting that roleplay bar,
Yeah, over dinner we talked about maybe doing a favorite player for the episode.
Yeah.
And Laura was my pick for this one.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Just right out the gate, and I think consistently it used to be Liam was the one always in character.
Yeah.
But I think Laura, I think probably had him beat this episode.
Yeah.
Because even in interacting with the DM, she was very much Jester, I think.
Yeah.
And
she really integrated that whole, I don't want to say integrated player knowledge because she wasn't metagaming, but what she knew and what Jester knew. And oh yeah, I know a blacksmith. Bad roll. I don't. Oh yeah, and getting lost and just making those roles work and continuing the narrative. The whole yes and.
Yeah. Which, speaking of yes and continuing it, Travis's phone. I think Siri wants to play D&D because your phone was doing stuff on Sunday too.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
my phone tried to jump in our D&D game.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Maybe Apple heard that thing about Alexa being able to play D&D, and so it's trying to jump on the bandwagon.
Huh. Yeah. But we have we have them break into teams. Team bookstore, team blacksmith,
and Yasha.
Yeah, team Yasha. I don't know. I haven't been able to decide what my headcanon is for that. Like, I don't know if she just goes off and does her Storm Herald thing.
Yeah.
Or if, because Travis has the character sheet, if in their headcanon she's just with Ford. Wherever Ford is, Yasha is.
That could be.
So that's the. If I had a question to ask on Talks of them, that would probably be it.
Okay.
Because they don't. She's obviously with them because she was with them when they spoke to the wizard later in the episode. Usa. They didn't leave her out of that.
Right.
So yeah, but the blacksmithing, we learn the sword's origin or the hilt's origin. Yes, Uthadurna.
Yep.
A great society of elves and dwarves living together, mass hysteria.
Yep.
Which connects to the flying cities that we learned about in the Happy Fun Ball. And we also had another mention of Godranus in this episode with the burned notes.
Yes. Also, with the sword, we found out that his pet project is he wants to get the sword remade for Ford, it's kind of a congratulations for not giving in to the darkness.
I would argue he did.
I would too, but I'm totally on the Ford is evil train.
It's true. Yes, you are.
Now, here's what struck me in that moment. Okay, Caduceus, played by Taliesin, who played Molly. Ford uses one sword. He's a sword and shield guy right now. And he's married Summer's Dance to the Falchion in commemoration of Molly. And he gets this new sword. Is that going to be a farewell to Molly, replace the Summer's Dance with this new sword on his falchion? Is that a final send-off, so to speak?
That will prove to be an interesting scene when it happens.
Yeah, but that's what was running through my head in that moment.
I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I thought of it more of, you're going to spend all this time and money to fix the sword so Ford can eat it.
Yeah.
And give it to his patron, essentially.
Who you already don't like, and it's a congratulations for not giving in to him.
Yeah. Although, the other side of that is, if Ford does take the abandoning of his patron, multi-classes into fighter or whatever, having a vestige, because I'm pretty sure that is a vestige.
We both are. We both thought that and said that as soon as they got the hilt.
Yeah. Having that as his backup or as his main weapon will help separate that.
Yeah.
And then he will which creates the the dramatic tension, that if they ever get captured or they lose their stuff or whatever,
he can
always call it. But what does that mean?
Yeah.
To do it.
That's true. And that would be a good backup, because I called this and now I can Misty step outside of the prison and then free you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could be.
And there's also the possibility, a few levels on, Ford takes the dual-wielded feat.
That's true. And if he goes fighter and takes dual weapons.
Yeah. So he's a Hexblade fighter combo. Uses charisma for attack and damage.
He can only do that with one weapon. You focus on one weapon and use your charisma for that weapon with the Hexblade, not all weapons.
So there's the workaround. He uses the Hexblade in the offhand.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Anyway. Yeah. So this episode, I think we got more of, as Travis put it 2 episodes ago, a Matt mystery.
Yeah.
Where Matt's starting to lay breadcrumbs for the far north.
Yeah.
Because he did it with the books, the animals that live up there, and all that stuff. But yeah. Then we have the bookstore.
Right. And I love your comparison.
Well, that's the next shopping thing before they go to the tower.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to touch on is Matt was charging them 2 silver per book.
Okay.
In that store. And he still charged Caleb 25 gold for the paper that he wanted. How big are those books?
It's true.
10 pages?
They're pamphlets.
I mean, he paid more than 100 times.
Yeah.
For the paper than what they paid for the books.
How much paper did he get?
they were non-specific, but if 50 gold will fill one page in a spell book, essentially 50 gold per level, page per level, that's 500 gold would be 100 pages.
Okay.
Now I don't know if Matt did that math.
Well, and the thing is, it could have been more paper because didn't you say it's like 50 gold worth of paper, but you're only paying 25 because
500 gold.
Yeah, because you can use less paper or lesser quality paper with the ink that he has.
Yes, but it's that inkwell is the equivalent of 500 gold pieces of spellcraft stuff,
right? Which
would be 100. No, it would only be 10 pages in a spell book, so even less than that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes Matt's economics don't make sense, and I notice it because that's sort of my day job.
I was gonna
say. I just, and it doesn't bug me. It doesn't take me out of it.
Right.
It's just, it made me laugh.
Right.
Is the thing. I mean, and they did mime it as he was dumping reams of paper into the bag.
Well, and they even mentioned that he had to go other places and get paper from other people to fulfill the order.
Yeah.
And then they had to put it in the haversack so that they could hold it all.
Yeah. But yeah, and my next, he mentioned when they were shopping the next day and they meet Sheila, and Not ends up doing the talking. And Sam had this thing, I feel like she's making fun of me.
Am I the face of the group now?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
But in preparing for the show, I made the comparison that whole scene to me was Gilbert Gottfried and Bobcat Goldthwait talking at each other. And if you don't know who Bobcat Goldthwait is, he's the screechy cop in Police Academy.
Yeah.
If you search Police Academy and Bobcat, you'll see scenes of him. But yeah. Yeah, and that just made me laugh. But Matt gives Liam a promise of an email.
Yes.
With lore.
Yes.
And I just during the episode I was like, can I get a CC on that?
Right.
And I don't even know if it will ever come up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if Liam will ever mention it. Now, maybe
he may mention it indirectly.
The only caveat to that is if the history book mentions the Kinau people.
Yeah.
And cites sacred to them. Because then that would give them, well, a direction for Ukatoa's temple.
That would regard it with a direct reference. I think we'll hear him reference it, but it'll be more like, I read once, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing, like, I don't see it coming up unless they go back to Nicodranas.
Right.
Which they may or may not do.
Well,
Caleb has the sigil for that teleportation circle.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Now, this is another one of the episodes where the conspiracy theorists who think the show is scripted are going to pull from, because there's so many foreshadowing comments.
Yeah.
And half of them asides almost.
Yeah.
The Ruby warns them not to be conspicuous, to avoid notice. Which is connected later when Caleb and Bo are arguing.
Yeah.
You have Caduceus Taliesin complimenting, saying one of the things he likes about Bo is her ability to talk around things.
Right.
Which is paid off again in that conversation.
Bo Caleb, yeah.
So, like, in a lot of... Like, we talked about how last episode, or, episode 47, was oddly paced. Yeah. This one was almost perfectly paced in a weird way. Maybe that's not even the right wording, but everything just seemed to flow better into the next thing.
Yeah.
And I thought they took an early break, but it really wasn't.
No.
It's just the episode went a little long after.
Yeah. And they did research the tower before the first break. So I said they would do that after the first break. I said, unless they don't do everything I thought they were going to do,
Yeah.
Because I put out very specific things last week.
Yeah.
And I was like, but certain things might not happen, in which case they'll plan. But they did get to the tower after the break.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I thought was going to happen. So.
Yeah.
The tower, though, I want to talk about that for a minute, because the tower, I am on Team Caleb with that, was a mistake. Now, they said, yes, we researched him, he's anti-Clovis Concord, but that's not the part that's important to Caleb. This is an archmage who's been around for a long time. We know there are 8 archmages in charge of the Cerberus Academy, one of which is Trent Ickathon. How do we know this guy isn't another one?
We don't.
And how do we...
Other than, I don't think the Cerberus Academy would let a foreigner be anyone important.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and I will agree that he's probably not. However, in the character's eyes, mindset, knowledge, that's what he's worried about.
Yes, but Caleb never voices his desires.
Exactly, and we talked about this a little bit before, and it's one of the things. He gets what Not desires for him, because that's what she argues for.
Yep.
Because he doesn't think he's worthy of anything.
Yep. And Not wants him to have more and more power. Mm-hmm. And Marisha Bo especially believed that Caleb wanted that too. And Caleb, to a certain extent, does want more power, but for a different purpose and to a specific end for his own that he hasn't really shared with anyone. And he is never his own advocate.
Yeah.
Even to the point that his own curiosity. So he did lay a bunch of shit and blame on Bo.
Yeah. And
maybe to a lesser extent Caduceus. When very early on in the episode, when they're discussing whether or not to go and investigate this, he's like, I have studying to do, you guys can go. And when they're talking to the Ruby in her room, Caleb is the one who asks her to tell them about it.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm sure you two want to go look.
Yeah.
So in a roundabout way, he is projecting his desires onto other people so that when they go bad, he can think to himself, it wasn't my fault. I didn't want that. They wanted that.
I can see that. I can also see that scene as being passive-aggressive, thinking that she'll probably tell him it's a bad idea because he's this hermit wizard. You know, kind of like when you try to call someone out in front of someone else and you're like, oh, didn't you want to do this thing?
Oh, you were hoping that the Ruby... You're saying he was hoping the Ruby would talk them out of it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
kind of just that passive aggressive call out in front of someone who will tell you to think better.
Yeah, because she would be the only figure in that room that has a stake in, hey, don't shit where I eat.
Yeah.
You came close last time you were here.
Too close.
Yeah. And for the third time, Matt told them it was bad guys doing bad shit to bad guys. We don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
to me, the whole tower scene, getting back on track, is a mistake waiting to explode on them. So you got kind of a meta put the game back on track reason in that the Fappy Fun Ball was removed from the player's hands. I like Fappy Fun Ball better than Happy Fun Ball.
Yeah.
Personal preference.
Is another reason why Laura was my favorite this episode.
You get a new patron, so they've got the gentleman and this guy, NPC patron. However, he didn't really give them anything.
Well, they didn't give him anything either. I mean, so their plan was, we're going to go into this tower and we're going to feed this guy a line of old news as fresh. So they're basically trying to pass off coddled milk as fresh milk.
And they directly lie.
Yeah.
She says, I told the truth, but she claims Ukatoa's involvement in the
war. Now, we have our own connection theory in how that all works.
Right.
And when Yusa said, it takes an insightful mind to piece these things together.
Yeah.
I was like, it's talking about us.
It just feels like they informed him of the dodecahedron. They pretty much said, hey, this is everything but our personal secrets.
Well, and that's largely because they could tell he was not impressed and already knew all the shit that they were trying to give him.
Right.
So they were reaching for stuff.
But what they did was put themselves on the map of someone without getting anything in return.
Except all access back door pass into his home. I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, but it could be a bad big deal. Just as easily as it could be a good big deal.
I disagree. I think the way they did it...
You think he's on the level?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the way they did it was a mistake.
Okay.
But I think contacting him and making an alliance with the guy was the right move.
Okay.
Now,
I'm not sold on that, but okay, I can see that.
The only concern I have is twofold.
Okay.
Two things that were concerning to me. The first of which is when Caduceus is talking about being a force for good.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I'm for the balance. Which immediately my brain went, Mordenkainen.
Yeah.
Same. Do you think he knows him?
Either knows him or is
a devotee.
Avatar or devotee, something. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mordenkainen is not a good or bad guy. He shows up on both sides of issues.
Correct.
Serving the balance. So we don't know where Usa will land in this. Now, like Bo, he doesn't like corruption and wants to work towards changing the Clovis Conclave. Because that was finally the key.
Yeah.
Everything else was bullshit and borderline annoying him.
Well, the other big lie, and I think part of this conversation, not that I believe it's scripted or they decided beforehand Bo should go in, but Bo went in. I think Matt tried to use it because he's put her in several situations where the brashness and the deception as an ends is only going to get you so far. It's not always the answer.
Yeah. For
that character growth. The other big lie she told was that the Cobalt Soul, and she said the Halls of Erudition, but that's a subset of the Solstice Academy, are working together.
Yeah.
Which
and
I was like...
That was practically the first thing out of her mouth.
Yeah, and I was just like, what?
And the look on Matt's face
exactly.
In character, that guy knew that was bullshit.
Yep.
So yeah, while I don't think he's a member of the Cerberus Academy, I think he definitely knows people.
Yeah. Especially when he's questioning Caleb in private. Where did you study? It's a place with books, lots of books. They had books and things, lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm self-taught. Sure you are.
Well, okay, in his defense, to a degree he is, because Liam has said on Talks that Caleb at one point was a higher level than when the game started.
Yeah.
But with the mental setback in the asylum and all that, he had to basically start from scratch and teach himself.
Yeah, and being trained for evocation.
Yeah.
And he's a transmutation.
And now he's transmutation. So, in his defense, that wasn't 100% a lie.
Yeah, that's fair. But that scene is my second worry.
Yeah.
For this guy. And I don't know if you watched the new season of Daredevil.
No, I've not seen the newest season.
But that scene between Usa and Caleb reminded me very much of a couple of the scenes between Kingpin and Bullseye.
Okay.
Between Fisk and Poindexter.
Okay.
Because Fisk is turning his...
Yeah.
And pushing his buttons, trying to convert him to his side and tip him over the edge.
Gotcha.
And that seemed very much... And part of me wonders if, even on an unconscious level, if that performance influenced Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if he's up to date on Daredevil.
Right.
But they had Deborah Ann Wall on.
Yeah.
And she's a big fan of Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
If her Twitter feed is any indication.
Indicator. Yeah.
So I got to imagine whether watching it because it's good TV or because he has a friend who's in it, and that friend would say, "You have to watch these scenes."
Yeah.
Because, like season 1, D'Onofrio owns everything when he's on. But anyway, it's so.
Yeah. The last thing I really want to talk about the Wizard, and it does lend to it being him being an okay guy. I don't know. Have you read the Xanth books?
No.
By Piers Anthony. I think Matt has, because, and I'm trying to remember, but earlier in the campaign there was a guy and a lot of coincidentals seemed to line up for him. Which is, so in Xanth, Xanth is basically Florida, but everyone has a magic power. It basically is another dimension overlapping Florida, the geographic, because he's from Florida, so the author. But that one of the main characters, his magic works, making it look like coincidence happening.
Yeah.
But this guy reminded me of the magician Humphrey, who's the magician of information. Basically, his magic is he knows where to find answers. He knows how to get information. But to get in, it's always like a puzzle, a trick, unless you know him or can get an appointment to see him to get into his tower.
Ah.
And then he always comes off as like this kind of a bad guy, but turns out to be a good guy.
Right.
And it just reminded me. So I'm wondering if Matt has read Xanth novels, because I've seen a couple of parallels
Right on.
between those characters, which is the reason why I'm not 100% sure. But like everything in me was like, I was on Caleb's, we shouldn't, this shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
As soon as when Bo was like, hey, give me your cat, and he's like, nope. I was like, that's right, don't do that with a powerful wizard. That's not a smart move.
Yeah. That was definitely the right thing to do there, for sure. Now, one of the things that I wanted to touch on in discussing the meeting at the tower is how everyone was treating Bo, and how Bo was thinking of herself, I guess.
Yeah.
And for me, it reminded me very much of The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
Okay.
And that's Bo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's largely because and Ford kind of kicked it off.
Right. When he was
Why are you fucking with me? Yeah. And that whole sort of dishonesty and untrustworthiness kept coming back in the episode. And think back to the conversation she had with Jester aboard ship, when she tells Jester, you're not a good liar. Yeah. And then she walked that back and said, okay, yeah, you are a good liar, but I'm a good liar, so I can spot it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Ford really kicked it off. Well, yeah, I guess he did, because the fish market happened before. Because the scene that really hit me was at breakfast, or at the meal, when she was, when Caleb's like, well, what are you guys going to do? Are we casing the joint? Are we going to try to kill the guy and take his books? She's like, or we could have a nice conversation and ask him for a book. Oh my god, I'm becoming Caduceus.
Well, yeah, like you said, and Matt definitely does put them each in a position to test the character and grow the character.
Yeah.
And I think
that's a sign of a good DM.
Yeah, and that's Marisha playing off the influence that these people have had on her.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is who the principal influencers of Bo have been.
Yeah.
Molly, Caduceus, Jester.
Yeah.
2 of them are clerics.
And let's be honest, the Order of the Ghost Slayer is a wannabe cleric. As much as I love the Blood Hunter, it's a wannabe cleric.
Yeah. So that to me was the interesting Bo arc in this episode. And I kept thinking of Garrick.
Okay.
In Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And when I made the connection to The Boy Who Cries Wolf.
Right.
So to me, Jester now is more like Garrick.
Okay.
Because Jester practices her lies all the time. Little white ones. Or big white ones. Some dark. She varies her lies.
Right.
And not often to the other members of the group. But when they're interacting, she's always telling little stuff. And no one ever questions her.
Yeah. Oh. It's the same thing with Not.
Yes. Which we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We need to spend a good deal of time on Not.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Bo didn't learn Garrick's lesson from The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which is never tell the same lie twice.
Yeah.
And I think Bo keeps telling the same kind of lies.
Yeah.
which is why she has that trust issue.
The whole Cobalt Soul working with these people. Cobalt Soul sent me for this, you know.
Yeah.
So let's go through some stuff real quick so we can get to the meat of it because we're already over halfway through our episode.
Yeah.
Couple of things. As they're leaving Ruby, we get a glimpse into her.
Yeah, her agoraphobia making another appearance. And this is another reason why Laura was my number one for this episode. Because she didn't even say anything. But if you watch, as Matt's narrating the Ruby coming out and the halting manner in which she does it, if you watch Laura is just filled with happiness.
Yeah.
That mom is facing her fears and coming out to see
For
me
her.
off. Yeah. Which meant more than the necklace.
Yeah.
For her.
Definitely.
Yeah. Caduceus's tea gets them the invite.
Yes. Even though it's not the tea they offered.
Yeah. Matt equates no. Was it me or did Matt describe Usa as having a flock of seagull haircut? Short on the sides, sort of comes over like this.
Yeah, I can see that. I didn't make that connection, but I can see that.
That's all I could see.
But
especially so now, like when I think of that,
he's a foreigner. He ran far away. So
my whole on my rewatch, I couldn't help but see the dude from The Wedding Singer when he's do you like Flock of Seagulls? I can see you do. But anyway,
he could have been George.
But yeah, Bo has if you're game, I'm game, or if you're down, I'm down, and open slots. And they joke about it. And then later on the trip, Bo asks Jester to do ascending and essentially do a booty call.
Yeah.
And I think, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that plays into her hating distrustful people? Because she equates intimacy with that trust.
Possibly. I hadn't thought of it. I've always seen it more as she kind of she doesn't trust people. She obviously doesn't like people as a general rule.
Yeah.
But she wants that connection with people, so she uses physical intimacy as a substitute for emotional intimacy.
How about that?
Yeah. Real quick while we're talking about Bo, the last thing before we really get into Not and one other thing, for me, is the Caleb and Bo argument. And, and we talked about this at dinner, and they are arguing around each other. They're arguing about the same event, but they're arguing about two different things.
Yes. Caleb is concerned that their actions will get them noticed and get them killed because of him.
Correct.
Because of who he is.
He doesn't want to be responsible for that. He's already responsible for his parents' murder. He's come to care about these people. He doesn't want to be responsible for theirs as well.
Yes. And Bo thinks Caleb is pushing them away. And he doesn't believe that they'll come to his aid the way that they've all gone before.
Right.
And she was trying to reassure him of that. And Caleb has no doubts about that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Just because in his own way he has forged those bonds and gotten those promises already.
Yeah.
From several members of the Mighty Nine.
Well, that in the way so, and that's the deep part of it. The humorous part of it is, the yelling afterwards. Hey, Caleb, look at that,
Yeah.
And I really just want Caleb to talk about wanting to lay low and you don't know who's around. And Bo to just pull a Jurassic Park and be like, look, we got a Caleb Widowcast here. See, nobody cares. That was just what I saw happening.
Oh, man.
Just like, please, let that happen.
That would be funny. They're in a town where she could do that, but it might backfire.
It might backfire big time.
Yeah.
With what we've learned about this town.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about other than Not and Dunamancy? Because those are the other two things for me.
Caleb's "One More Day or You'll Regret It" comment,
Yes.
I think, needs to be touched on.
Yes, that was very deep insight into Caleb.
Yeah, well, and especially poignant at the end when Matt gave them the second of the two behind the GM screen fuck yous that he gave in that episode. The first of which was when they were joking about attacking Usa, and he's like, what a surprise it would be when your weapons pass straight through him. Because he's an illusion. And he's like, you think this guy doesn't have protections? But Caleb touched him.
Yeah.
Caleb took his hand. And I think that's one of the reasons why Caleb did it. Because I think Liam
wanted to know.
Yeah.
Is this an illusion? Yeah.
I think. Now, it could very easily have been a clone or a simulacrum.
Yeah.
Or. Phantasmal.
Yeah.
Force, where they would feel it.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of options.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. A return of "And I Walk Away."
Yes.
Was the other one.
And she got so giddy when she got to do that to him.
And the other thing that I wanted to touch on was the guards asking, who do you pray to?
Yeah.
And Jester not having a ready response. And I think Jester needs Benny's collection of holy symbols from the mummy. So she can just start pulling.
She's going to have to take the linguist feat. Just so that she can do the prayer in the right language.
Yep. So, yeah. And then Gustav's in the wind.
Yes.
And which may be good or bad.
We see Bryce
Probably
again.
Most likely bad. Bryce is still a guard and still witnessing their conspiring to commit
forgery,
theft,
among other crimes. I mean, the last two times I saw him, they openly talked about forging papers in front of him.
Yes.
And he's like,
and specifically his boss.
Yeah, specifically his boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got his handwriting. Do you have any other people's handwriting we can use?
Yeah. And Jester and Caduceus gifts, the cookbooks.
Yeah.
I loved Taliesin, and if you weren't listening, you might have even missed it. Because he says, I never thought that anyone would make a cookbook.
Yeah.
Because he's not a reader.
Yeah.
And he even says, oh, these have nice illustrations.
Yeah. Alright, so real quick, I'm going to touch on Dunamancy.
Okay.
Second time we've heard about it. The first time Caleb was studying and we hear about, and Dunamis is ancient Greek for power. So it's basically power magic. But it's, bending of time, probably a little bit with manipulating probabilities because I think the dodecahedron is from that.
Yeah.
Do want to note that we've now had.
Well, we know the dodecahedron is a source of dunamancy.
Yeah. But we know that we've had a divine source not know about it. Now, not that the Traveler is some all-knowing God, but he's powerful enough in that sense to have clerics.
Yeah.
And we've had an archmage look at it and not know anything about it, which 2 spells.
Legend lore.
That's what I thought. Although Legend lore takes 10 minutes to cast.
Oversight on the DM's part.
That was my thought. But I just wanted to touch on that.
Casting time is something that a lot of people ignore.
Yeah.
Or forget to double check.
And I've been guilty of that.
Yeah, everybody does.
But, okay, so we've got this. It's been mentioned. So my hope is if, I'm still saying when because I really want it, we get a Wild Mount campaign setting, is that going to be a player option as a subclass for Wizard?
Maybe.
Sub school for Wizard.
Maybe. I wouldn't. It depends. Now, the letters they found indicate that Trent has students who have some knack with dunamancy.
Yes.
Who do you think those are?
Astrid and Edwolf.
And Caleb.
Yeah. Also, we know that they're doing experiments on another beacon. And this is going to kind of feed into not, but what if, the thought I had, like, there's something went wrong with an experiment, and that's how it ties, but a bunch of, the people, the guards and stuff died, and we've got some enchanter wizards modifying memory on some living ones, and using the crick as a scapegoat. And some of those early crick attacks we've heard about were these things going wrong, these experiments going wrong. We need someone to blame. We need a reason to explain off how these people died. And the war is an excuse.
So you're saying that the attack is a lie.
Is a lie. Modify memory.
It's an interesting take, but thus far the letters that they found don't indicate that death has been a side effect.
Yeah.
Of these experiments. I tend to think that the attack was real because the Jorhassians attacked the Tri-Spire to get that thing.
That's true.
And when they didn't get it, they declared war.
Yeah.
And they did everything they could to draw the Empire's power out of that place. And then snuck in with the strike team. So, to my mind, everything points to that it was a real attack, but that's an interesting take. But I had so many moments of celebration in the midst of their shock and horror.
I'm still holding on to my theory, and we've had these
and there are many people
opposing origins. However, I will say I am currently 50-50.
But yeah, I was like, she has a son. The old woman recognized the halfling she disguised herself as. Called her Veth.
Which, back in episode 17 or 18, I think it was 18, they're going around and not disguises herself as a goblin woman and gives the name Veth going into the library with Caleb. back in episode 18, and Matt looked at him like, "Are you sure you want to use that name?"
Yeah.
So, and then the other throwback that lends credence to you that I thought of was back in episode 1, actually, when we find out that Bo and Not both know Halfling. Sam goes, "I can speak Halfling, right?" Which, if that's just your character choice, why would you need to ask make sure that the DM with the DM that you can speak it?
Yeah.
So those are the two that is the biggest point in your favor in my book.
Okay. The biological son and the father lying about where the toys are coming from, you don't think plays into it? Which, if you guys haven't been watching us, long time ago, I
before
predicted,
Allfield.
Yeah, that Not was a polymorphed halfling.
Yes.
And a few episodes later, when Not's collecting the buttons and she sends that package home with money, I said she's got a kid.
Yeah, and I agreed with I didn't know it was hers, but I agreed that she was sending for a kid. However, my theory, if you read in the Exandria guide, the Tal'Dorei campaign setting, there's a curse on, the goblins were created by people being cursed, and I was a fan of that curse being weakened by this. I believe the evidence is more in favor to his theory at this point, but I'm still holding on to mine. That's why I'm 50-50.
Yeah.
If I go just by the evidence, I have to side with him, but I want my theory to be right.
Fair. But we have Vesta and Martinez, the two archmages that Caleb recognizes.
Mm-hmm. And Vesta not knows. Or knows of. Because she says she has something or some knowledge on him.
Well, Vesta is the mean woman that her husband was working for.
Right.
My assumption.
Right. Because she says she goes, "I know her. She wouldn't know me." Vesta wouldn't know me.
Yeah.
Which also lends credence to you, because she might have known her as a halfling, not as a goblin. Possibly she got polymorphed, not intentionally like you had thought, cursed, but as a failed experiment with this.
Or to make Not's husband work for them.
Yeah. Now, to coincide with mine theory, I was thinking that Not could be trying to replace Veth, and that the actual Veth died, possibly at Not's hands as the torturer's assistant. The other thing is Veth could have somehow, with the whole experiment, her brain could have gotten could have been put into, because she's got memories of this and she knows.
Or she was whammied by an enchantment wizard that works for Trent Ickathon.
Yeah. Or do we know that Trent's not an enchantment wizard?
No, we know he is.
Yeah. So it could have been by him.
Yes. And I said
because
that long time ago.
Yeah,
and that
we know that Caleb and Not are very closely intertwined, especially after this episode.
Yeah. Your people. Which I loved that Not was the one to betray his secret. Not Bo.
Yeah.
Because he had been so worried that Bo was going to be the one to betray him. Yeah, I love that moment. And the fact, I think Liam took his own feeling of being blindsided and played that into the character, because he made the comment, "I thought I was going to get to sit back. I thought we were on Sam's thing."
Yeah. Yeah. I will admit, all the dominoes are lined up for your theory.
Yeah. And sometimes a chair is just a chair. Are you on team player on that? Because I'm on team Matt. The chair is just a chair.
To a degree. The one thing I wondered is, no one asked about above. There was like rafters, or if someone was on the chair to hide something up there.
Huh. You're right.
And maybe information about, maybe his has got dirt because they did something to his wife.
The only argument against that is that they rolled a 21 on the investigation to figure out what happened in the room.
Yeah.
And that's not the kind of DM that would get that persnickety about things. Well, I think he has a list of information.
It also depends on what the role is to hide that spot, if it's information. If he gave the NPC a roll to see how well they hid that, and they got a 25, the 21 investigation isn't going to uncover it. And that's not him being persnickety.
That's true.
But I'm 60-40. 60% a chair is just a chair. But just the fact that, like, that's where my mind went. Someone was standing on it to hide something higher.
Okay. I can see that maybe.
Real quick, I know we're getting close to time.
Yeah.
Found it interesting that Bo's always talked about selling wine, little light criminal stuff. But then her first instinct is, does my criminal background know that that's for torture? So she's into deeper shit than she's let on to.
Yeah, well, and Caleb basically asked the same kind of question. But, I mean, sometimes players just get fixated on a bit of throwaway set dressing that the DM throws out there.
And I am probably as guilty of that, or more so than anyone else that plays D&D.
Yeah, well,
as my normal DM, you know that.
Yeah, well, and even NPCs, people you're just throwing in the room to populate it with people, so it's not weirdly empty. And you're just thinking up random people, and you're just trying to pepper them in the room, and you give one or two little quick descriptions about what makes that person interesting.
That one.
And yeah, and then it's like, we're gonna talk to that one. Yeah, all players do it. But yeah, I think the next episode is going to be... I don't think we'll have a confrontation of the Archmages.
No.
I think they are going to attempt to find out where the crypt came out of, and they're going to go into the tunnels.
Yes.
And I think we are going to see them level up.
Yes.
If not at the beginning of the episode, at the end.
Yeah. I would say the break or the end.
Yeah.
They've leveled up at the break before.
Yeah.
I guess it'll just depend on how the play goes.
Yeah. Because I think they arguably have hit a milestone in getting back.
Well, and to be fair, they've also not said level up at the end of an episode. In the beginning said, hey, we've leveled up.
Yes. So I think that will happen. And largely influenced by Campaign 1 is my thinking on this.
Yeah.
They were level 8 when they went into the Underdark.
Yeah.
And most of the CRs in the Underdark, popular monsters, you need to be around there.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going. Now, do we have... How contentious do you think the confrontation of Caleb is going to be?
I think it's going to be pretty. I think we're going to find out a lot about... I think we're going to find the answer as to which one of us is right about not, first of all.
Yes.
And
conclusively,
yes. And if I had to put smart money down, it would be on you. But I want it to be on me.
I think if it is contentious, the confrontation, I think Ford and Bo are going to come to Caleb's defense.
Why Ford? I get Bo. I'm not sure I buy Ford.
Because Ford feels like he owes Caleb. and is Caleb encouraged and forgave him of some of the worst shit that he did in the ocean. So I think he's gonna be backing Caleb up.
Okay.
So we'll see.
I see Ford doing the whole where I started him being lawful evil. You guys do what you want. I'm out of this.
All right, but we're out of time, guys.
Yep.
This Thursday we'll find out if I'm actually right or not. I'm not, and
next Tuesday we'll discuss it.
Yep. See ya.